is at the table where the stories get shared. Welcome to the men's roundtable. Pull up a chair.
Little throwback. We ain't heard that one in a while. That's on our other show. But good to see you guys. Welcome to the Men's Roundtable Series podcast. I'm Mr. U. These guys are here ready to roll. First question right out of the gate, man. We're talking about trauma. Are you guys dealing with trauma with this daylight savings time thing? You guys okay? Are you guys going to flip out? What's happening where you are, man? Talk to me. Give me a lifeline. What's happening out there?
I've listened to so many people whine about this on the internet today. Again, it's all over the Facebook feeds.
The daylight savings time?
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole daylight savings time debate.
Didn't that happen like a couple weeks ago?
No,
been that long,
we're
but
voting on it right now. One half of Congress passed it.
Dude, that's gonna be so weird living in Canada around that, because I'll still be changing our time while you all are just staying the same. It's gonna mess me right up.
Interesting.
So it gets interesting.
That kind of sounds like trauma. I'm not sound like trauma a little bit. Sound like trauma. Okay. So
are you dealing with smoke in Canada?
What's that?
Are you dealing with smoke up in Canada, Nathan?
Oh yeah, no. Yesterday we actually had orange
getting
skies and it's crazy, yeah. And it's still smelling smoky out there today.
Scott Madera in the house. What's up, brother? Good to see you, man. Thanks for jumping in tonight.
Hey, I want to know why Canada gets all like love. Oh no, they're on fire. Dude, we got fire season. It started 2 months ago and it doesn't stop till October.
It's because we're so polite. And we ship such lovely goods down south that are often legal up here, but illegal down there.
I'm starting to feel a little trauma, and I'm not living in Cali and Washington State. I'm feeling a little trauma for y'all. Wow. Okay. Does this DST thing actually affect you guys at all? I'm talking about in a serious way, like the longer, I guess, consider the longer nights per se. In the morning, does that affect you guys in a way that you're concerned about? Or is it like, it's not a thing, I don't really care?
I'll be glad it's over.
Okay.
Yeah. The time change messes with your head, messes with your thinking. I mean, twice a year, you go through the same stressful, week period where you're trying to readjust the way that you're, getting up, the time you go to bed. When it's over, I think I think it's going to reduce the stress that we experience overall.
I can't wait to see that play out. Because I don't know what it's going to do. Besides traumatize the kids at the school bus. It's pitch black outside. Other than that, I don't know what it's going to do. So looking forward to seeing that. David said he's going to come out with
I'll throw my 2 cents worth here. I live in agricultural land. That's it. Daylight savings time started for agricultural benefits. I live in the middle of nothing but agriculture. I got agriculture and data centers. We're an agricultural center for the country. Our whole town is surrounded by fields of nothing but farming. So we haven't needed daylight savings time in 50 years. So I don't know why it still exists. all of our combines, all of our heavy tractors, all have GPS, and they're all controlled by GPS most of the time. Some of them have human drivers. They still got GPS actually keeping them straight, even with human drivers. So I don't know what the big deal is. They all got headlights. They all got lights. They all got GPS.
Copy that.
Man, I'm on the other end of that spectrum, bro. At least once a year, I get to look forward to an extra hour of sleep. That's me. I'm still a child when it comes to that. Daylight savings time, cool. I get to get up an hour later.
I'm glad you wasn't on the decision-making floor, man. I'm glad you wasn't on the decision-making floor, because if that was the best arguments you had to not let this thing happen, one extra hour, man, you would get sliced in that place. I'm glad you wasn't there.
I need that hour, brother. I need it. Once a year. It's like Christmas.
David said he got us on the legislation stuff. David said he got us on the legislation. I don't know what he can share with us that we don't already understand. But thanks, David, for being out there. Share what you know, brother. Drop it in the comment section. We'll bring it up and get into it, man. It's still a legit combo. Beside that, man, I was kind of partly joking, but sometimes I feel like a lot of guys that I know who have issues with, like PTSD and that kind of stuff, this kind of change could potentially impact. That's why I asked you guys up front, do you guys feel a difference in this? Is it something you're concerned about? Does it trigger something? But if you guys are saying no, we can keep on moving.
Personally, I don't think it's the daylight savings that triggers anything. I don't know if you guys ever feel it though, man, but from January till March, I refuse to make any decisions because it's just like having to get up off my butt to do anything. I 100% get the seasonal depression. I just don't want to do. I just work the bare minimum and then that's it until about March, April, sun comes back out and I'm happy again.
Copy that.
Not much earlier than that, but
no worries. Anybody else out here? All right, let's get it. All right. So what I love about this show, and when I hear from you guys, you feel the same way about it. We talk about stuff. I know that we kind of talked about certain things, and we talk about it repeatedly with different angles, different perspectives and stuff. But the whole generational trauma thing, you know, the more people I meet, especially off of the page, from behind the mic, you know, it still feels like to me like we're not really connecting the two dots together. I'm dealing with this because of this. You get what I'm saying? The whole generational trauma thing is something that people they don't see that they want to tackle it. I don't know if it feels like it has too many spiritual attachments or connotations to it or something, or it reminds them of something that has to do with religion. I don't know what it is, but the whole generational trauma thing, it's been happening so long. It should be simple for us to receive it, I guess, and understand it. That it's a thing. And we fleshed it out on this show so many times since we started the show, actually. It's been over a year now. Happy anniversary, guys. You know, and we've been talking about this for a long time. But it's like, it still feels like people who I talk to, maybe you guys feel the same way about the guys you talk to in your neck of the woods. They can't connect the dots. They don't see that, you know what you're dealing with, it's not just bad luck. It's not just, you know, happenstance. This stuff is inherited. It's generational. It's been passed down. It's been implanted in you to have these kind of inclinations, these kind of leanings, if you will. Are you guys seeing a challenge with people understanding what generational trauma is? Do you not embrace the topic yourself? Where are you on that?
I recently put out a podcast about not necessarily generational trauma, but generational curses. Mm-hmm. And how a lot of people, and I don't like to say this as men especially, we kind of use it as an excuse. We say, oh, I'm that kind of guy because that's how my father was. That's how my grandfather was. Ooh. But in the sense of, you know, if you're a Christian and you believe that God redeemed you from all of your sins, that's all of your past trauma. That's from the past and into the future. So soon as you say, Jesus, I believe you, and I'm going to follow you and make you Lord of my life, that generational trauma that you have, it gets broken. But it's up to you to walk it out and to live it out. You have to make that decision every day to go past that generational trauma.
You know how this is somebody who's not smart. So if you're doing this, I'm not applauding you. I think it's a horrible idea. You know, somebody who has dealt with perhaps 25 years of alcoholism, right? And on year 26, however they get to the conclusion, you can speculate how you like. Year 26, they're not messing with it anymore. They have decided that it's not good for their life, for their marriage, for their family, for their children to see them in that way, and not good for their physical health. So they drop it. Whatever the reason is that led to it, it's not important to this conversation. Year 26, they drop it. Though that same guy can't walk around and go with his friends to the bar.
Right.
You can't go into the wing and ale house and sit with your friends while they're having some bugs. You can't sit there and do it with them. And I feel like people do that kind of thing like that, like you talk about, Mark. They have the breakthrough point, the chain breaking opportunity, but then they kind of walk around in the same places and wonder why things are not changing for them. And it's really kind of ridiculous, but it's very much a fact of life for a lot of men. Anybody else want to jump in? Go ahead.
Okay, I'll kick the hornet's nest on this because I think trauma is a way overused statement. It has become politically correct in the last 20 years to mislabel stuff that people don't want to deal with or don't want to take responsibility for.
Yeah.
Now, does trauma exist? Yes, real trauma does absolutely exist. I've got family and friends who have PTSD. Real trauma absolutely 100% exist. Okay. Not taking that away. The problem is we have started to slap this trauma label on anything that we don't want to take responsibility for or deal with, that we want to feel bad about. It's become a crutch that we throw on and toss around as a complete throwaway word, right? A person who has PTSD from the military service because they were in some really horrible stuff, and that's going to traumatize anybody, right? A person who was sexually abused or assaulted, right? There's going to be real trauma there. I had to shake off some PTSD after I broke my neck because my body remembered the accident more than my brain did and freaked out when I got anywhere near something that simulated it for a while. Thankfully, I worked through that, right? But actual trauma exists. But these people who are like, I saw these words and they triggered me, and I'm so upset.
Oh my goodness!
I'm done with it. I'm done with it. Get your
Guys, I need a safe space after that. I think.
I think I'm traumatized.
I'm sorry, Nate. I'm giving you a warning about me.
No trigger warning.
Yeah, I
There
should
he
give
is.
you a trigger warning for sure. I absolutely am tired. I'm tired of people trying to claim that they actually have legitimate issues when they just don't want to take any responsibility for their lives.
Yeah.
I know alcoholics who have walked away from alcohol. My friend's been in recovery for years and now helps other people in recovery, right? I've beaten drugs myself. I've beaten alcohol myself. I've been injured. I've had all kinds of things in my life. I have lots of people in my life who have had horrible situations that they went, this is not going to write my story for the future. All right. There's a huge difference between something that actually psychologically damages you at a neurological level that you have no control over, that you will have to learn to walk through, and something that you just don't want to deal with and own. It's that simple. And we have got, as men, we've got to stop hiding behind this label. It is an excuse for men to act like children.
I'll jump in on that if that's okay.
Wait a minute. Hold on 1 second. Hold your thought before you do that. All right, Brent. The little imitation you did of the person that you did a few minutes ago, that didn't sound like a man to me. I've heard that before, and it's usually, no offense to the ladies, it's usually always women or a young man that is not as masculine as some of you guys may be. Okay, so give me an example before Nathan jumps in. Give me an example of where you see men hiding behind that, with or without the character voice. It's up to you, but go ahead.
My dad didn't love me enough. And I know in this crowd, I might be hitting close to home for a couple guys, because I know some of the guys on our team had horrible fathers or non-existent fathers. However, you absolutely have control of your life at this moment to say, you know what? My dad sucked, but I refuse to let it define me as a husband. I refuse to let it define me as a father. And as a man, I will step up and be who I determine I'm going to be.
Yep. Amen.
I'm sorry you had a bad childhood. A lot of people had a bad childhood.
That's the truth. All right, Nathan. Sorry to cut you off, brother. Go right ahead, sir.
No, it's all good, man. That's the most patient I think I've been in my life. I love it. Fundamentally, I agree with you. I think the idea of trauma is definitely be overspent. Having said that, I don't know what else you would call it or what the other name is, because I very similarly, man, I blamed my dad for a long time for my problems, and it wasn't his fault. I blamed a lot of people for my problems. But the part that I struggle with when I hear this, it's like, yes, I blame him for my problems, but I don't know when I realized that. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. I do remember when I actually realized that. So blaming him for his problems was so convincing to me. It wasn't like I was sitting there being like, oh, I know I should step up and take responsibility for my life. I'm just choosing not to. It wasn't like that. It was like, dude, you were being bad, or you were this or you were that, until ever. And then ironically, it took another man sitting me down and basically confronting me on it and mentoring me through it, which is really what dads are supposed to do. Right. And I would put a small sum of money on, with almost all the trauma the perceived trauma you're talking about. Like I kicked alcohol as well. Prior to alcohol, it was the weirdest sort of mental addiction, because it was like I couldn't imagine my life without a beer in my hand. I was a daily drinker, right? Now I guarantee you there were people in my life who confronted me about that. I was just choosing not to listen to. Yet I often wonder what happened if I didn't have those good people in my life confronting me. Because what leads us to the conclusion that we actually need change? And I'm legitimately asking that. Like I agree with your premise, but then what is it that just leads us to this idea that, hey, I need change?
And the answer is, you have to hit a cause that brings you more pain than staying the same.
Yeah.
Something has to hurt bad enough that it is more painful to stay the same than to change. That's what rock bottom really is, right? I wanted to quit smoking for years, right? I smoked for years and years. I started smoking when I was like 14 years old. I smoked for years of my life. It took me having a moment, because I never smoked at home. I didn't smoke in front of my kids. I didn't smoke in my house, right? I smoked at work and every now and then in the backyard with a friend or something. We were out there. It took me realizing that if my daughter, she was, I think 2.5 or 3 when I stopped smoking, I did not want her to ever fight that demon. And it took the idea that I could screw up my child and put that on her, tearing me up inside, to be bad enough to be, and I tried to quit several times, to be bad enough for me to actually go, you know what, screw it, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to walk away from it, because I could never do that to my child. Right.
And I think, and I'll let other people talk after this, but I think that's kind of the point that I'm trying to prove, though, is you had something there that gave you that. And I agree. I think the vast majority of people have something in their life that gives them hope. They're just choosing not to focus on that. Right. But I will say I've met people before that haven't had that, or somehow convinced themselves they don't have that. And I just, all I'm saying is I don't think it's as easy to turn around and say, and then again, I got to be clear, man. Sorry, I'm very articulate. I try to be, I'm not talking about the college students that need a safe space because there was a little bit of red on a donkey. What I mean is like, what I mean is there's some people that just end up living in such a hopeless scenario where I agree with you, but there's no future or past pain that doesn't beat what is being currently solved right now by whatever that is. Right. You had your daughter. When I quit drinking, man, I remember I was lucky my wife gave birth, or I had to go to the hospital at 5 a.m. because if she had to go at 11 p.m. the night before, I wouldn't have been able to drive her, which would have been embarrassing as crap. Right. There was a lot of aha moments that allowed to drive me to that. But I'm blessed to have that in my life. Right. Yeah. And that is truly a blessing.
Good stuff by both of you guys. Here's another comment. I'll go to the first one first. This is from David. We live in a culture of victimhood today. Brent, I guess people are looking to get something for nothing. So he's addressing the mayor, the unofficial mayor. All right. And Scott says, this is why breaking cycles usually takes community. Good point, sir. You can choose to be a victim or not, but often it takes somebody or someone outside of you to help you remember that. Yeah. Something that Nathan said, I know this is going to get me in trouble because it happens every week, but I don't really care. I feel like there's always something that a person, I believe in God's grace that much. There's always something that somebody can lean on. Say, you know what? That can give me hope. I don't feel like there's never anything. Something, like I think somebody mentioned here on the panel, we choose to ignore it. We push it away. We push it out of our lives. But there's always something that we had that can give us some hope and say, you know what? So that's why when we started the show, I was talking about the man on the bridge. Part of me didn't understand it. It wasn't because I never had those kind of tendencies before, because I have had that once, darkest point of my life. But it's really hard for me to understand. You mean nothing, no one, no redeeming qualities in anybody around you to say, you know what? this person, it's good for me to be here because of this person or because of. It's hard for me to understand. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying, and you guys can enlighten me. It's just hard for me to understand. It's nothing, no one, not a soul, not a person, not a relative, not a comment that you made that helped somebody, a prayer request that you nothing. It's just hard for me to understand. But again, we're talking about trauma on a deeper level. So, you guys didn't get a chance to chime in yet? By all means, here's your opportunity. Go ahead, please. Sorry.
Yeah, you mentioned hope and having that. The thing that comes to mind is you just need a reason, right? Whether it's hope, whether it's like for me, it was honor. For me, it was honor. About 5-6 years ago, right?
God, what are you talking about?
Getting a poopy diaper.
What are you talking
Yeah,
about,
keep
Scott?
that poopy diaper, Scott.
What are you doing over there, man? Go ahead, D. I'm sorry, man.
It's all good. It's all good. But no, from my reason for change as a result of all these things was honor, right? And it was through a traumatic situation. I went through the divorce, the loss of my kids. My mom got hit by a truck and it killed her, right? My dad got hit, my grandfather, my sister, they both died. This is in an 18-month span. And then I had to go to prison, right? And in that space, that's where I decided, okay, my reason was going to be honor, right? I lost 3 of the most pivotal people in my life, 3 people who loved me unconditionally, 3 people who would kick me in the butt, but not tell me that they needed me to be anybody different, right? Now I don't have them, right? So there's no hope that I get to show them who this person is, but I can honor them by becoming who they thought I should have been without forcing me, right? I do agree with everything that is said here, right? Having something to hope for, that's huge, right? The scripture tells us, right? 3 things left, right? Faith, hope, and love. Love is the greatest, but we can cling to hope, right? Those are important things. I agree with Brent, man. Trauma has become a label that we use to excuse our bad behavior, right? Like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a piece of crap today. It's my trauma. Hold on. Hold on a second. I'm sorry you can't stand to be around me. It's my trauma, right? But it's not, right? It's become this excuse. I do agree, and I'm thankful with what Mark said. It is a daily choice, right? It's not like, we accept the Lord as our Savior, and then He washes us clean, and then we are absolved of any kind of trouble or challenge for the rest of our lives, right? It is a daily choice. But at the end of the day, we have to know what we're labeling as trauma and what actually is trauma, right? Like we have to make that distinction because otherwise, I can't do the voice like Brent did, but we're going to have an entire world of men who sound like that, right? Once upon a time, men were looked to be examples of how to get through things like trauma. Men were looked to be examples of how to process, right? And how to lead and to build and to guide. But then, you got cartoon voice Brent over there. And that's a very real thing, like where did all of this change? When did this thing happen? We have the Bible and absolution from the beginning of time. We have salvation, we have redemption, right? But we can't keep just labeling things as trauma just to get away with it. I wish, man, if I could have went to the courtroom, right, when I was being sentenced to go to prison and said, Your Honor, it's just my trauma, right? I wish she would have let me go if I would have said that, right? But it seems to be that's what it's used as, right? I don't think that would actually have happened, but it's become like a get out of jail free card for a lot of things, man. And it's, I don't know. My question is, how do we get back to separating the two and having people learn how to be accountable for their bad behavior, without making light of real trauma, without making light of things that people actually go through, that actually hurt, that actually shock the system, that actually affect their lives in such a way that they don't know which way to go.
What do you suggest? What do you suggest?
Call a spade for yourself, right? Like not for anybody else. Don't take the world's definition of what everything is, right? If you have something that is unsettling in your soul, right? Understand what that is and make that distinction for yourself. Don't let somebody make an excuse for you. That's a good start because I think that's where a lot of these things happen. I mean, I've got clients, you guys know, like I work in behavioral health, right? Like I work with clients who will be like, oh, I'll ask them questions about their diagnoses, right? Oh, this person told me I have this. Well, you're not exhibiting any symptoms of that. You don't act like a person who by definition is that, but you're accepting that. And now you're using it and weaponizing it to defend yourself for everything that you do wrong, right? So I think that's a good starting point, right? Taking accountability for what you are and not letting other people put the label on you, right? It's reputation versus identity. I think we've talked about this before, right? Reputation is what the world says you are, right? Your identity is who he says you are, right? And that's a very good place to start. Know who the Lord says you are, man.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to tackle DL's question? You guys got a suggestion that doesn't include corporal punishment? Go ahead.
I do. I want us to relabel it. That's the first step in anything. We've talked about this before, is putting the right label on it. And something Nathan mentioned too, right? What else do we call it? Can we just go back to calling it baggage? With baggage is the best metaphor.
Exactly. Yep.
You can pick up or put down baggage. You can add more weight to your baggage, or we can unload some of that baggage. But in the end, you choose whether you're carrying it or not, or how much you're carrying of it, right? We all have some baggage, right? We've all had some negative things happen in our lives. We've all had ups and downs. Everybody has baggage, but you have a choice whether you carry that. Actual trauma, that is scarred into your psyche and generally takes professional resources and a lot of time and patience and love to work through to get to a better place with actual true trauma. The rest of the garbage, we just need to put it down and walk away. We're choosing to hold on to that a lot of times. So I think it starts with stopping to throw around this very clinical label and actually get back to just a really simple metaphor that we all understand. Although I really want to hear what Coach Lee says because he hasn't said anything yet. So
Straight up.
Jump in here.
Thanks, Brett. I appreciate that. And I just want to tell you, I'm running for city council just because of you.
Oh my goodness.
I'm going to come at this a little different, at a little different perspective here. First, the first thing I want to talk about is the old story about the drunk who had two sons. He had two sons, both grew up, went off. One of them became very successful. The other one became a drunk. And when they went and asked the drunk son, they said, well, why are you a drunk? He says, well, my dad was a drunk, so I had no other choice. Like, that's interesting. They go talk to the older son or the other son who's very successful. And they say, well, why aren't you a drunk? And he says, well, because my dad was drunk and I had no other choice but to be successful. Right. And then we see like one guy accepted the identity of the trauma and kept living it. And the other one chose to put down that trauma and create a new life for himself. I think that trauma can become a fuel if you use it correctly. I'm a generally shorter person. I'm only about 5'4". So most of my life I was picked on for being
taller
short.
than me.
Oh, super. Just kidding. But I was picked on most of my life for being short. And there were some few things in my childhood where I had those things I could call back to trauma, things like that. I was actually adopted, so I never knew my birth parents in my childhood. And then there's some like abandonment stuff that goes along with being adopted, all this other nonsense. But then I joined the military and I went to war and I saw things in war. I literally watched a Humvee blow up right behind me. The two guys are actually still alive today. Jumped out of the vehicle, saved one guy's life. He was still on fire, and did some other. And in this moment, it's like someone would look at that and go, "Man, this is a super traumatic event." Like you watch somebody get blown up, like that's huge. But all my experience as a child and the things that we consider to be trauma, I believe strengthened me for that moment. I've seen people die. Wasn't a big deal. I worked in ERs, so I've seen a lot of different traumatic physical conditions. And none of those, they don't haunt me like a real trauma event, or people claim like victimhood with their trauma card. For me, I just saw it as it was what is part of life. You go to war, and in war, there are casualties. to go to war and not to expect to see casualties is to live in a world of fantasy. And so I think that as children, we see things that happen and we either choose to say, I can't do this with my life because this happened. Or you can say, this is what happened to me and it made me stronger so that I can go on and do even harder things than other people. The results for me obviously made me mentally and spiritually stronger. There are some things that go along with PTSD that I still deal with because there's a state of mind. Like in a car accident, you're not expecting the accident. When you're in war, you're kind of expecting somebody to get hurt. And so there's an emotional part of that you shut off during that event. And so your brain gets rewired to shut that emotional connectivity off for that type of event. When you have a car accident, the emotions all happen all at once, right? And so, yeah, you could relive that same experience driving down the road and somebody swerves a little bit and you get scared and, you start to shake a little bit and have the symptoms of PTSD. But I don't suffer with the symptoms of PTSD because the way that it rewired my brain. One thing you guys are talking about, how do you go forward? Especially when you're looking at trauma, your own personal trauma. And one thing I've taught others is to look at what part did you have in it? What is the true story? What is the truth? What really happened? And what part did you have in it? Because you can only control your part. You can't control dad. You can't control mom. You can't control uncle so-and-so. But you can control what the part you had in it. Now, obviously, as children, we're taught to respect our adults and we tend to do things as we're instructed, give or take, depending what home you grew up in. But you also have to look at the way that you then react to that trauma. Can you use it as a victim card? And I mean, the one thing is trauma becomes part of one's identity, right? Does it become part of who you are? Or do you look at it and go, what can I learn from that situation? After meeting my biological father, there was a moment when him and I disagreed on something. And he was so mad, his arms were shaking. He was so mad. And I looked at him and I thought to myself, I will never allow anger to take that much control over me. And so I spent the next 2 years working on my personal anger because whatever caused him to be that angry or he allowed himself to get that angry, I said, I'll never, ever do that. Not to my children, not to any other human being. And so I made a choice in that moment. And I think that's kind of the way men need to approach it. What part did I have in this? And what is my choice going forward from there?
Good stuff, Lee. Thank you, brother. Anybody else want to jump in? If not, we'll keep on moving.
Yeah, no, I'll jump in because that was beautiful. And I definitely fully agree with it. And it makes me think, I think, let's see, in our podcast, we talked a little bit about this. I can't remember, but I remember reading a study that they're talking about emotional reactions with an earthquake in South America. And they went to the core of where the earthquake was, where people lost their houses and families and people were dead and dying and all the rest. And as they started interviewing people, they were like, hey, how are you feeling right now? And they were like, dude, we're not even going to talk about this right now. We got stuff we have to do. We have to clean up. We have to find our family. We have to do this. We're not even taking these interviews. And they went about 3 or 4 kilometers out and they were interviewing people that could feel the earthquake, but were no real danger. Like it was like the shelf would fall, but they weren't going to die. Yeah. And they interviewed them. And those people were like, oh my goodness, it was the scariest thing in the world. The shelf fell and I barely survived it. And they had to exaggerate the story. And the guy who was using the analogy was making the argument that when your internal view of yourself isn't matching up with your external actions, you have to exaggerate the story, or you have to somehow change it so that these become an alignment, or you have to face yourself, which is a much harder thing to do. And you asked a great question earlier, Dustin, that about how do we fix this problem? And I look at young men today, and it's like, I think there's something inherent in young men that we can't get rid of, like the aggression, the energy, all this sort of stuff. And I don't know about where you're at, but in Canada, we have things like the Fail Them Forward program, where you don't even need good marks. You just get pushed to the next grade. And we have participation trophies coming out our yin yangs. And the worst one, as I learned in bantam hockey, they actually still have equal play time. And in bantam hockey in Canada, you have to understand that's like I get it if you're just playing hockey to learn and have fun and play hockey, but in bantam, that's like your step to really make this as a career in your life, right? So young men have no ability to challenge themselves, and every step of the way, they're told their feelings are wrong, that you're being too aggressive, you can't have snowball fights, we can't have, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And then we grow up, and then we're expected to be leaders, and we're expected to be heroes. And so now, and honestly, like, one last thing I'll say before I'm done verbally vomiting about this is I'm listening to all your stories. Man, I got it easy. Like, I complain. I am so, like, I have not experienced a lot of what you guys have went through, but yet I would still complain for a lot of my life, right? I haven't been to war. I haven't been in the military. I haven't been to prison. My parents are like, when I find when we have it too easy, we have to now create that story about why our life is hard. And if I were to give any young people advice, man, or any men out there advice, it's not worth it. Like, you actually want to feel what the story you're telling people. You want to be that man, be accountable and acceptable to who you are, and then you'll go become that man. You're not going to become that man by keep creating stories that make you look like that man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody want to jump in with another comment, or you guys want to tackle the question that we got out?
Tackle the question.
Let's get it.
So the question, what did the men in your family teach you without ever saying it directly? I think I've said this on the last one, and it's just so relevant because my dad's story, my dad was an alcoholic for most of my life until I was 14. And then in one night, he made the decision to follow Christ and gave it all up instantly. So what he showed me, exactly what I talked about when I first started, is you can make that decision. And it's really what you believe in your heart. Because my dad, I actually just put a Substack post about this, because my dad, he wasn't a real intelligent man. He knew the Bible, and he knew it like he read the King James Version, and exactly what he read was the gospel, everything that he read. So where he read in Proverbs that a man who drinks alcohol is like wine is a mocker, he used to quote that all the time. So that told him enough. I gave my heart to Jesus, and everything in the Bible I have to follow. So he turned it around instantly. What that showed me what I talked about earlier. And I have to say, I didn't really live it out most of my life, because maybe like Nathan, I had it a little too easy. I didn't have a lot of trauma, so I had to kind of make up some trauma and make my life hard by not really being the man that I should have been for 40 plus years. But what my dad showed me is that you can make that decision in an instant and turn your life around, but you still have to daily pick up that cross.
Yeah. Good stuff, Mark. Thank you.
I got to tackle. Yeah, I got to go in here. This came with a double-edged sword. You're gonna love this. The men in my house, without ever saying the word, taught me that I was enough, just as I was. And the other side of that sword came with, because I was enough as I was, all the trouble I brought into my life was on my own head. So I had a straight lesson from the beginning because I didn't have like my mom and dad. My dad died here in my house a couple of years ago from his health condition. My mom still lives with us. My parents were married for years and years and years. My dad was a minister for 47 years. He was a good man who loved us and spent time with us and cherished us and was emotionally available to us long before men ever started talking about being emotionally available. I had amazing parents. I was blessed. Because of that, I learned very quickly that all the headaches, troubles, and problems I brought into my own life, they were all in my own head. It was all me. My parents had nothing to do with it. I had no excuse. I had friends with alcoholic parents. I had friends with divorced parents. I had friends who were beaten as kids on a regular basis. My adopted brother has scars on his back from where he was physically beaten every time he misbehaved when he was younger. I had nothing to complain about as a child. All of the problems, the drugs, the alcohol, the problems I got into, were all on me. It was all my own doing. So from an early age, I figured it out that it was on my head. And it was probably the most important lesson my dad ever taught me by teaching me that I was enough from the get-go.
That's an awesome situation, man. Thank you for sharing that, brother. Anybody else want to share on that?
Cause a lot of problems.
I think that sometimes fathers can have a very unique way of teaching kids that love is earned, not freely given. Now, obviously, Brett, your dad sounds amazing, but I'm sure some of us can look back and say, you know, Dad never really actually took time to display love, to show that love was free and without charge. This is something I've actually had to struggle with over the last 12 months, is this idea that God loves me freely. Like there's no cost. God doesn't charge. He doesn't keep scorecard. He's not saying, "Oh, Lee, you didn't do it. You weren't 100% Christian today, so I'm going to dock you tomorrow." No, God constantly loves us unbelievably all the time. And when I reflected on that, that came from a father wound, from a father who wouldn't communicate what he was going through or create challenge that came out with reward on the other end. Because I personally believe, this is maybe just me, but I believe our fathers and me as a father, I am a representation of God. I'm not God. I'm a representation of God to my children. And when they look at me, they need to see a man of God. And when God leads in my life, he loves me, then I take that same exact love and I turn around and I give it to my children without cost, so that they know when I'm not here, they can turn to their Heavenly Father and receive the same exact love that he gives to me and I give to them.
Yeah. Sorry, did I interrupt? I've been talking a little bit. That goes along with the law shows us that we need to change, but it's grace truly what changes our hearts. And I remember hearing a thing that most up to a certain age, most people will describe God, the attributes of God in their mind, the way they see him, as they will their fathers in real life. And this, I think, one of the hard parts to reckon with being a father now myself, though, it's like there are a lot of things I didn't like that my dad did, whether it was working too much or not playing or coming home and having a beer and not engaging with us as kids. But he was a pretty damn good provider in the end. And I don't know if he was ever taught how to love. And I don't know how people don't do it without Christ in their life, to be honest. Like what you're talking about, that unconditional love, that unconditional, that grace that is given to you, the peace you can have in Christ. We want it without Christ. We want it from our fathers and we expect it from our fathers. And I think our fathers cannot, that's an unrealistic expectation to put on any father. Like they are a sinful human being the same way I am a sinful human being. right? And a lot of times they do their best. And I know it's not going to be all Christians that listen to this, and there'll be some secular or whatever, but man, if you're struggling with this, like, the only unconditional love you are going to get is from Christ. You're not going to get it from your dad. So be like Elsa, man. Let it go. Let it
We
go.
just had our first Frozen reference on the men's
I was going to
roundtable.
ask if that would have been.
That might be the very, that might be the very first one. Yeah.
That's the first
Yeah.
one, man.
I can tell I have a
I
daughter.
think it is the first one. Yeah. You know, the whole, one of the things that I feel like, I think we get it, whether we want to admit it or not. I think we as a panel, we get this, even the people who are in the comment section that have been on stage with us. I think we get this particular point. We talk a lot about the us part of it, what we're dealing with, how we feel, what we're going to change. Even many of you have said, but you're not going to change. And you've been rigid about where you're going to be, and that's it, you know? But we rarely talk about what our children get. But they don't just inherit our words. Sometimes they learn how to handle stress the way we handle stress. The way we handle conflict is how they handle conflict. You'd be surprised what your kids hear that you think they don't hear. Get that out of your mind. They hear stuff that you don't think they're hearing because they're not asleep. They're on the other side of the door, but they can hear it. How you apologize to your spouse. They learn from that. How you respond when you fail. They learn from that. How they see you treat yourself. They respond to that. So I want to ask you guys, what is one generational pattern that you refuse to pass forward? Whether you have kids or you expect to have kids in the near future, what's one generational pattern that you just have? It's an absolute for you. You cannot pass this forward. It will be exposing yourself a little bit. I think the listeners need to hear the authenticity of that answer. So go ahead and share that. What's one generational pattern you refuse to pass forward to your kids? Try to be as brief as you can. We got more questions and a little time. So go ahead.
That for me is that earned love. She doesn't have to earn my love. I love her no matter what.
It's good stuff, man. Thank you, Lee. Who else? Earned love. Good stuff.
My wife is going to roll her eyes when I say this one. She's right beside me, but I didn't see my dad do a lot of chores around the house. When I first got married, I did almost no chores around the house, and I was quite an ass about it. And now that I have a daughter, I don't ever want her to be with a man who doesn't do his own laundry. So
I'm just making sure nothing happens, after I give you a 3-second pause to make sure you're okay.
I'm actually doing laundry right now. I've been lazy on it, but I'm getting it done right now. So that might be my saving grace to make that comment in front of her.
Just blink 3 times if you need help. If you need help, blink 3 times. Touch your ear if you need help. You're good. All right. So, go ahead, guys. Who's next?
Man, I'm gonna go with it's my second marriage, right? I'm estranged from my kids, but I refuse to pass forward what I had already shown them. Should I be reconciled with them? The relationship that I have with my wife now, it's not going to be anger and abuse, verbal and physical. Like, I was a dirtbag to my kid's mother. Like, I treated her like she wasn't even a person. And I refused to pass. They witnessed it. And my hope is that, should we be reconciled, that they get to see that, okay, dad's got it right this time. Like, he knows, like, I don't even raise my voice to my wife right now. I'm patient, as patient as a person can be. Everyone has a little bit of a limit, but I refuse to respond the way that I used to. What's interesting is my parents, my dad, the men in my life, they taught me that men show up, right? And it's almost like I created something different by going to prison, by being the person that I was. I showed my kids that men disappear, that they abandon, And so I just have this hope, man, that they get to see this life that I'm living now, this new creation, right? The old is gone, the new creation is here, right? And I hope that they get to see that, man, because as much as I regret those things, like that's part of the journey. Would I do it over again if it would lead me here? If it would lead me to this point, to this person that I find myself becoming? Absolutely. I don't know if that's terrible to say, right? Like, I acknowledge who I was, and I don't think this person has to. I don't think a person deserves to go through the things that I put their mother through, that I put anybody around me through in my former life, but I also know that serves to who I am now and the demographic that I work with now. I'm more effective because I understand them. I'm more effective because I can be an example of what that change looks like. Yeah. And so I don't know if I partially answered your question, then I went off and did my thing, but
no, that was the answer. Thank you for sharing it, man. I'm leaning on you guys to do it, man, because I got some, most of you guys know a lot of my story when it comes to my father and my daughters and stuff. It's like, I gotta get that out in small doses. I can't be hitting people with that every week. It's too much. It's too much for me to even say it. So I'm leaning on you guys. Thank you for being transparent and keeping me off of the proverbial hook. Thank you for sharing your story. So keep going, guys. Answer the questions you see fit, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. Go ahead.
I've been trying to think about how to answer this because my kids are already grown, and while they were at home, I was a very passive guy. Like my daughter told me once, she's like, I feel like they bullied you a lot, and I don't want to go too deep into this, but I have a lot of church trauma from a church that I was at for a long time, and I was an armor bearer and I was a deacon, and they had me doing everything. And there was a time when my daughter had a thing at school on a church night, and this church was very legalistic. They're like, you can't miss church for a school function. That's not godly. And this is me opening myself up here. I was wrong. At that time, I was passive. I'm like, you know what? You're the leader. You're right. And I had an argument with my daughter about this whole school thing, and she remembered it. This was real trauma she had. Now we've worked through it since then. Yeah, I'm no longer with that church, and a lot of healing has happened. But what I wouldn't want my kids to take on, and it's a weird word to say, is my passivity, because I don't want them to take on aggression either. But there is a point, especially as a man, where you need to stand up for yourself and speak up when you see something's not right, and it's not right, just because you're in this church setting. And there's a point where you're not trying to be insubordinate, but if something is wrong and you need to speak up about it, and you hold back, and I did that for a long time. That's something I wouldn't want my kids to take on. I have two daughters, so it's a little bit different, but speak up when you need to speak up. I didn't for a long time. They're seeing it now. It's just, it blows them away that I'm on a podcast and that I'm going on channels speaking to other men, but because they're seeing it now, and I'm praying that they continue to see that, and they know it's to speak up when they need to speak up.
Tell them I think their dad is fantastic. All right, Mayor Emeritus. Go ahead, sir.
It's so much trouble one of these days. No, I
only say it once a week, so we should be all right.
I was being quiet on purpose because I was really trying to think about this, right? Because the question is about generational, right? Which means more than me. If we're talking about generational trauma that I don't want my kid, or generational things we don't want our kids taking from us, it would have to be more than me. And I honestly can't think of anything that's generational. There's nobody perfect in my family by all means, but right, my bad habits are not my dad's bad habits, are not my brother's bad habits. I got two brothers. They don't share the same bad habits I have had in my life, right? We don't have anything generationally in my family. Like I was going back to my grandfathers and my uncles and stuff like that. We don't have anything generationally in our family that has haunted our family. Apparently we've got a heart condition that none of us knew existed until I killed my dad. But so I guess there's that I get no say in that one. But generationally, there's not a part of our past or family that I wouldn't want my kids to pick up. I come from a very, very tight, close-knit family. I just got back from a family reunion down in Texas. And so there are bad habits that I've pursued in my life. Like I said, it's the reason I gave up smoking. I didn't want my daughters to learn that habit from me. But there isn't a generational issue that I feel like I have to break my kids loose from. I thought about saying like a negative relationship with money. So my dad had a really negative relationship with money, but he was a domestic missionary, and so we lived on the grace of churches giving him money, which they did not give him much. I don't think my dad ever made more than $40,000 in a year in his life. We were not at mega churches. We were at these tiny little churches. We're barely surviving and getting mission support from other churches that were sending us this much money or that much money. Honestly, we would have starved if my grandmother didn't live with us, because my grandmother had her husband's pension that was more than my dad made. But my dad had a negative relationship with money. So I started with a negative relationship with money, but my brother doesn't. My brother's got a great relationship with money. So like I said, there's nothing actually that stands out to me as I wouldn't want my kids to take this away. I think if anything, I want my kids to take away, I want them to learn from my failings and to learn from the failings that we've had some of, right? To be able to look at their uncles or their grandparents and look at what they did and the choices they made and try and learn lessons from those. But there's not a big generational takeaway that we're trying to break at this point.
Okay, that's fair. I know you got a scheduling conflict coming up, so I want to make sure you get a chance to chime in on this question before you have to bounce. We talk a lot about community all the time because we recognize that isolation is one of the key things that trips up most men. We know it. You can deny it in the comment section if you'd like to, but we know it's true. We've seen it in our own lives, and we've seen it in yours too. For you, I'll let you answer Brent first, and then everybody can chime in. You got 3 minutes to talk about it. At this point in your life where you are right now, with all you've been learning and growing in, and all the things that we've been talking about regarding generational trauma and the provider trap, all the things we've been talking about, what would you say, if you're being super transparent, that you need to hear from the men around you right now? If perhaps you haven't heard or you haven't heard enough of, what do you need to hear from the men around you? That could be us, or it could be somebody who's not on the call. It doesn't matter. Whoever you determine is somebody you trust to, I guess, to tap into, or you see as a lifeline, or you trust to make that 2-3 o'clock phone call or text. What do you need to hear from men right now, you personally?
I need to hear more men in my life not making excuses. I'm really burnt out on men I know, men I love and respect, who are still, whether it's trauma or whether it's they were never taught the right way. I think it was Nathan questioning, what did he ever know, right? Did he know how to express that love? Or talking about his dad. Whether it's they weren't taught, whether they weren't shown or explained how to make it work. We talked about emotions, right? We were never given the words to actually frame our emotions other than anger and sadness a lot of times as men. I need to hear in the men around me that I know, love, and respect, more men saying, I have control and I'm not going to let things decide me or guide me anymore. I'm going to choose to take control of my life and live the life I want to. I'm not going to let all this define me anymore. I need more men to take responsibility around me, because I hear a lot of excuses for all the bad crap.
I love that, man.
That's good.
Before we move on, thank you for all you shared today. You always asset to the group, man, and give our love to the family, please, and hope everything goes well that you got to take care of in a little bit. But thanks for being here, brother.
Catch up with you next week.
Yes, sir. Everybody else, who's next? Come on.
Man, I don't know. I'm like ditto. I would love to hear the exact same thing, right? Like, we're so quick to portray or come up with this picture of what a man should be, and yet not do that. I think I would like to see more than I would like to hear. Men around me walk it like they talk it. Like, it sounds good. Sounds really good, right? Scripture talks about people who want their ears tickled. I don't want my ears tickled, man. I want to see this happen. You know, I would love to see that. And it's not a knock to the men around me. You know, I do the same thing. It's not to say that everything that I say I'm going to do, I do immediately, or everything that I talk about, like I'm completely about that. I have my flaws too. I'm not going to be guilty here of speck and plank. But I would love to see more men walk these things out that they talk. You know, I just got done reading some scripture about how, you know, if you're going to be a teacher, right? If you're going to be a teacher, make sure that you're doing these things, right? If you're telling people not to steal, are you stealing? You know, and it's the same thing. We see it so often. I see it a lot, whether it's in business or in my personal life or even in a church. You know, the church is really a big place where I actually see that. And it's a sad state of affairs of the heart of God, his bride, his unreadied bride right now. But that's what I would love to. I would love to see something more than I would love to hear it. I've been hearing too much as it is.
Yep. And great comments by you, David, man. We need to live by this stuff, man. So thanks for sharing this. This is really good stuff, brother. All right. Anybody else want to jump in real quick? All right.
I'm in this weird phase of life right now. I'm pushing 60, and a lot of the men that I talk. Thank you. A lot of the men that I talk to are like younger than me, and for most of my life, most of the people that I'm around have been peers, and now these people I'm not on purpose, just because I'm around them, but I'm a little bit further down the path. I'm speaking things into their life, and it's weird to me. And they're looking at me with it's just weird to me. They're looking at me with respect, and it's a little confusing in a sense, because I've never felt like people look up to me. So the question being, you know, what do you want to hear from men? What I want to hear, and this is just me being vulnerable, that the things that I'm saying, that the things that I'm sharing is actually helping their life, that it's more than just a friend. Like they've gotten better through something that the Holy Spirit told me to speak into their life. I'm being on podcast every week and just talking. There's so much talking in the world. But I want the talk to be more than just talk. I want it to be change. And the same thing that Brent and Dustin are saying. I want to see the change, not just hear and talk about it, say how we need to be better, but let's actually be better.
Yeah. Good stuff, Mark. Thank you. Nate, Coach Lee.
I've just been going back and forth. I thought I knew what I was going to say. Now I have no clue what to say. It's a really weird thing, because honestly, on one hand, I do think it's our guys. It's a man's responsibility to accept up, take leadership. I honestly think, man, when it comes to our families, I think we are the ones to take on the burdens. And I think that's our job. And when we talk about, I guess it might be echoing, when we take on those burdens, not complain about it. Like among guys, I think we could complain to each other every once in a while, just to be like, hey, man, I'm struggling with whatever. Or I can't believe this is going on. But when we get home, we got to get our minds right and our heads right. If I don't know if it's one thing I want to hear more from guys, but and we've been talking about, I just want to see men step up and be men today. Like you don't have to give in to I'll say we don't talk. I haven't heard us talk about it, but you know what? Women have it hard, and it's not making it any easier that we're just letting them step up and take all the control and leadership. Like men, dude, we got to step up. And sometimes that means serving. I'm not saying you go home and you tell your wife what to do and the best way to do it by any means, man. We are called to be servant leaders, but we are called to be leaders. And I wish I had more men just come up and be like, you know what? I failed last night because I led in the wrong way or this, but I want to do that better. And I want to stop making that mistake and just not make excuses for it. And just, I don't know. I'll just keep beating a dead horse on that one if I keep it going. So we'll just leave it at that. Just step up,
Oh,
guys.
that's fantastic. And we have had those discussions, but you know what? All right, it's going to come back around again because all of our issues are cyclical, if you will. So they all come back around. So it's all good. All right, Lee, land the plane.
I think the planes have landed. We're just taxiing in at this point. Yeah, men take responsibility, step up. I think what's like really was ringing in my head. It was like, just be honest. Like, let's have some honesty. We're entering an interesting period of time in American history where I think for the last 20 plus years, maybe even longer, maybe even 60 years, men have kind of like become very passive, become very kind of lackadaisical. We've let the women step up and take charge and said, sure, you want to do that? Go ahead. But it's going to be a tough climb and we're going to have to do some hard things. And obviously the men's round group table, this is awesome. It's a great place. I mean, I go back sometimes and watch some of the old episodes just to hear like what's going on in men's lives, what we're talking about. And I think that men need this. I think men need to be surrounded by other men who challenge them to step up and be a better man, be that godly man, be that leader in their home. Obviously, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? I'm doing this because I want to see men become better men. And I think men just need to be honest with themselves and say, you know what? Yeah, I've put on 30 extra pounds in the last 2 years. I should get out and do something. Oh, my knees hurt a little bit. Well, maybe it's because that 60 pounds you put on in the last 4 years is probably having an effect on your life, you know, and taking personal responsibility for your own life. I don't know if you guys know who Adam Lane Smith is. He's a kind of a relationship coach.
Attachment guy.
Yeah, attachment guy. A great guy. And one of the things that he said was like, men, we have a tendency to keep score. And we say, well, I pay all the bills. Why isn't she making all the meals? And I think that's a shirk of our own responsibility. We discussed it. And then today was like taking that personal responsibility. Do your own laundry. Wash your own dishes. Don't get upset if the things are not the way they are in the house. Maybe you pick up the vacuum and make things the way they are, the way you want them to be in your house. And as men, if you think of your home as a castle and you always think that you're the king, well, you're going to have a hard time. But if you're the servant of your own castle, you're going to have a great home because you're going to be willing to do the work that needs to be done to make it the way you want it to be. And so, men, let's be honest with ourselves. Are you actively trying to make a better home? Are you trying to actively be a better dad? Are you trying to actively be a better part of your community? Yeah or no, but be honest.
I give you guys the floor because in my assessment, from getting to know you guys and becoming friends with you guys, I see so much value in you. And I love that you talk and share and extract that, even though you might get uncomfortable. Because on the back end, know we hear people talk about that guy said something that was so profound. That guy said something that was just like me. That guy said something and I know I need to change now. So I usually defer to you guys. This is one time I'm going to answer the question. So the question was, what do you want to hear most from the men around you? I got two things I'm going to share. I'll let you guys get into it if you want to. If not, we'll go ahead and close the show out, right? The first thing I want men around me to say is, I see you. It's so rare that we hear that from anybody. If you grew up without a father in a household or a male role model that, you know, that took care of business, you know, you don't hear that kind of stuff. Your fourth grade teacher didn't say it. Your mom probably too busy to say it. Handling things. Where'd you hear it from? Who said it? Your kids probably don't even say that because they don't even understand the importance of even saying something like that to their father. So who says it? I love to hear the men who understand how important it is for us to hold each other up, to say, I see you. And the second thing I look at men around me to say is, the world is better with you in it. We can go doom and gloom and say, you know what? This world's going to hell in a handbasket. We can do that if we want to, or we can be honest about it and say, you know what? It can go there a lot faster if it wasn't for people like you who stand and fight the good fight, who are out here doing their part, whatever their part is, in their genre, on their mountain of influence, making a difference, making an impact. Honestly, and I speak to all you guys and the guys that are listening or the catch in the replay, we don't do this enough, man. We don't. You do it with your sons and daughters, and you should, because that's your first priority. You do it with your spouse, you should. First priority. No shade from me on that one. But when it comes to us, ask yourself the question: are you doing that enough? You know how this podcast started, right? About the man on the bridge. That was a real person that would jump on the freeway because nobody said, I see you. Nobody said the world's better because of you being in it. We need you here. You got something of value to bring to the table. All they have voices in their ears and a freeway underneath their feet. Do you do that enough? You ain't got to answer that. Don't raise your hand. I don't even want you to answer now. It's too powerful. I'm just asking you to think about it. Are you doing that? The whole premise of this show was pretty clear from the outset. Every day you walk by 3 to 5 people and you don't touch them. You don't speak to them. You don't encourage them. You don't give them a hand. A hand out or a hand up, you don't give them nothing. You go about your business doing your thing. I want the show to change that. For those 3 to 5 guys, I'm not going to be on that bridge because you know what? You were there. All the guys that are watching, listening, whether you're in Wisconsin, California, New York, Seattle, Florida, you can be there for at least one. So they won't be on the bridge. What you thinking? Did that sound like that's a reasonable expectation?
That's pretty good. That's really good. There was one more that I think you should add. How can I support you?
It's a good question. It's a good question.
It's something to think about. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, man, I just want to echo what you said to the listener, to the watcher, right? This is for you too. You, I see you. You are seen. You are known. You are loved.
Thank you, sir. Love you, brother. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you guys for being a part of this incredible exercise, exposing the disguise of toughness and revealing the trauma, pulling back the layers. Keep on doing this personally, and of course, share this with everybody you get a chance to share it with. This is the Men's Roundtable Series podcast where husbands, fathers, brothers, and sons are about that work. Thank you guys for doing what you do.